Today I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm with a very special guest and an important person in the history of Washington Heights. This is my predecessor as a lead pastor, Les Magee. And you may or may not know, Washington Heights began in 1955, not in its current location. And when Les came as a lead pastor, it was in the previous location, and you led the move to where we are today. Les, what led you to lead the church to a new location?
As we outgrew our chapel, we built the Family Life Center. During that time, the church grew from about 130 to about 400 people. We kept growing and growing, and finally I said, let's think about expanding our present facilities. So we looked all around us. People came and they just wanted to build a small gymnasium, juniors highs. And I thought, we have to think bigger because our church was growing and we want to reach more people for Christ. And then a Denver seminary professor came over. He was the president of the seminary, and he said, you need to think more than 10 acres. And so we thought of our present property. 20 acres were buildable up on top, and the rest were hillsides. And then one of the people said to me, he said, why are we building clear out in the country? And well, it's not the country anymore. And somebody said to us, who would ever buy our property? And the superintendent of Bonneville High School said, if you ever want to sell that property, we want first dibs on it. And so that's how we entered into negotiations for the property. And we built out there. And that's where our present property is. And that's why we call it a church, Washington Heights Church.
And less humanly speaking, that was a risky move. I mean, to move a church and to move locations and to build buildings. What led you to undertake that and have the confidence that that was a step that God had for you?
We're confident that God had us out there because we wanted to keep growing, and I had the conviction that a small congregation didn't have nearly the impact of a community as a large congregation. Because in a small church, you can't put on the programs that you can in a larger church. And so I would just encourage you to not be fearsome, but look to God, and God will direct you and God will supply your needs.
Would you say that God exceeded your expectations or undershot those expectations or about met them?
Oh, I very, very much overshot my expectations. I didn't ever dream that our church would become the large congregation that it is.
Unless, in many ways, you have just sought to meet God's heart for people. Can you share a little bit about that?
We wanted to be a safe place where people could bring their friends and others. And we tried to just think of what a non-church person would think of our church.
Unless, do you think in this day that God is still reaching to people like He always has?
Oh, I'm no doubt. In fact, there may be more people that are open, and that are searching, that are looking for the gospel.
Unless, if you could speak to people who are part of Washington Heights now, based on the experience you had, how would you encourage them to think about this expansion that we're looking at?
I look back now, and I'm so glad we moved out. Our church would not be anything that it is today because we need to focus on God and reaching out to more people who I'm convinced need to know the Lord and need to follow Him.
And I think it's fair to say many of us are at Washington Heights now because of the decision that you made back then. And would you cast that same sort of vision that the decision that we're making right now has the potential to impact far beyond just us?
That's why we bought the property out there, so it could continue to expand and continue to be a regional church. It's an investment in eternity, not just momentarily. And I think one has to remember that you won't take anything with you in the way of treasures. but they will all remain here. And so I would say, trust God and move ahead and do what He has on your mind and on your heart, and He will supply your need.
Les, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.